everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So, your memory might sometimes, trick you into thinking that you liked something you didn't like or didn't like something that you actually liked. But you know where you can find the truth and you can find the unbiased, opinions that you had in your archives if you have such a thing. And I have that. And I went back and looked and I actually believed in the year 2010, where this movie, 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 and this movie was released. I thought that Clash of the Titans was going to be the 5th best movie of that year. You stupid fucking idiot. Was it the 5th best movie of that year? No, it was not. And this was, during that period of time where, 3D had, become the big thing in Hollywood. And you know what Hollywood loved to do? They loved to do the conversion things. Essentially, it was that they took a 2D movie and they converted it into a 3D movie and, slapped on some, rather sketchy 3D effects on the whole thing and making you pay more to see it in 3D. And when most people left this movie, they had a headache, and those who hadn't had a headache, they felt broke, busted and disgusted. And I absolutely hated this movie back in the days. I rewatched this movie for the purpose of this review because I figured that I'm going to watch this in 2D the way it was meant to be watched. And to be fair, I actually think that it is a lot better than it was back in 2010. But how good is it and what is it about? That's what we're gonna find out. Today we're going to review Clash of the Titans. So Clash of the Titans starts in a similar fashion to Hercules. We get to hear the story of how Zeus defeated, the Titans and have them locked up, and there's always the fear that they will break out again and will Zeus be able to defend mankind and stuff like that. And Zeus was a bit of a player and he had lots of, children on Earth. One of those children is Perseus, played by Sam Worthington. Now, our story begins that Pete Postlewise finds a box, and inside of the box, a dead woman and a living boy. The whole thing gave me big Bahubali vibes, although this movie cannot hold a candle towards that movie. Bahubali, Bahubali. My God, that movie is so fucking great. Anyway, Perseus comes to resent the gods since his entire family actually was killed due to, the actions of a god, in this case, Hades, played by Ralph Fiennes. And for a small second, I would have liked that it was James Wood who played him. Aren't we forgetting a teeny tiny little bit? I own you! James Woods. Arguably the greatest thing that happened in a rather mediocre and lackluster Disney animated feature. Anyway, so the gods need, man's prayers to, be able to keep being gods and keep being immortal. And also, if they are not around, the Titans are going to escape their, prison and going to come up here and, kill everybody and stuff like that. And the thing is that due to the gods' arrogance, a man doesn't pray that much to the gods anymore and actually fight back against them. And Hades sees this as an opportunity to, take over Olympus, and he thinks that they should demand a sacrifice. We demand a sacrifice! We demand a shrubbery! No, the knight who says, "Nah, you don't want a shrubbery, you want a princess." Specifically, the princess of Argos, Andromeda. She is to be sacrificed to the gods, because if she's not, then they're going to unleash the Kraken, which is going to kill Argos and all its citizens. Quick question. Can't you just, move from Argos? What, keeps them from saying, okay, let's get out of here and go to Paxos? Could you see that thing happening? Honey, I know that there is this Kraken coming who is going to kill us all, so let's just move out to, Paxos and live with, your sister-in-law. Absolutely not. The people of Paxos are uncultivated, ugly, and they smell too. And your sister-in-law is a total bitch. Shut up and pack those bags. Now, they don't do that, and instead they says that Perseus is going to save them by, traveling to the witches to, understand how to stop the Kraken, because the Kraken is not something that any mortal man can do. But since Perseus is in fact a demigod, he is the son of Zeus, even though he rejects his father and is actually ashamed of being a demigod and stuff like that, he agrees to the whole thing, and together with a bunch of red shirts, they go to the three witches and try to find out how to stop the Kraken. At the same time as this is happening, we also have a religious fanatism that is going on in Argos, and we also have the story with the gods. We'll get to why that muddies the waters a little bit. By the way, when Ralph Fiennes shows up and, has his demands and stuff like that, do they know that he is Hades? Have they, pictures of him, like, posters or anything like that? How do they know that he is Hades, by the way? Doesn't matter. Anyway, so Perseus, a bunch of red shirts that also includes Mads Mikkelsen and Io, played by Gemma Arterton, who is going to, go to the witches. Io, by the way, has protected Perseus all her life and, has some kind of a connection to him and stuff like that. We'll see where that one goes. The witches tells them that the only thing that really can stop the Kraken is the head of Medusa. So they're going to have to go and try to get the head of Medusa in order to, stop the Kraken. Medusa, the monster who has, serpents for hair, and any man who stares at her face and also her hair, will turn into stone. So that's the story of the movie. And to be fair to this movie, this is a relatively simple, easy to follow, and unexpectedly, a fast-paced story, considering that this movie does not clock in an even 100 minutes, which surprised the hell out of me, because I, thought that this movie was, 2 hours and change, because most movies that was released during this time, there was, a huge blockbuster with, multiple Academy Award winning or Academy Award nominated movie stars, always had this huge complicated plot where you have to clear numerous obstacles and, jump through hundreds of hoops in order to, get to the point. But they didn't do that. It's just, go to this place and then go to this place and then go to this place and then you go back and hopefully you can stop the Kraken. But there is one thing that I could never really get around, and it is the following. When they're going to kill Medusa, Io tells them that I cannot go with you because the women are not allowed in there, and she tells, like, the story of how Medusa became Medusa. And when she's telling this story, I was thinking, who's enforcing this law, that women cannot go into Medusa's chamber? And because women will not turn into stone, isn't she a great distraction? Hello, Medusa, here I am. And Medusa will like, ooh, a woman who will not turn into stone. Oh! And then they, cut her head off from, the back or something like that. So what happens if actually, a woman enters Medusa's chamber? Do they get a fine? Do they get a slap on the wrist? Are they cursed, for eternal hell or something like that? You could have used just one line of dialogue and it would have, fixed the entire thing, so I don't have to complain about it 14 years later. Anyway, so we have a bunch of relatively fun, spectacular, and visually stunning action sequences with relatively mild swashbuckling adventures going on here. The problem is, as I said, 100 minutes of runtime, and we have 3 competing storylines. They do devour, time from each other. They at least have one story too many. Either cut, the religious lunacy and stuff like that in Argos, or, severely reduce the squabbling, among the gods, and, you could have maybe have a more focused story than you actually has. The gods, by the way, Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes are so damn awesome as Zeus and Hades, and they might not take this all too serious, but when Liam Neeson is about to, do his release the Kraken thing, it's great, and the visual presentation of them was absolutely fantastic. So This is a relatively simple but spectacular movie. The special effects has aged fairly well, and I will say, if we could have had somebody else playing Perseus, this could actually have really worked, because this movie was released 1 year after the monster hit of Avatar, and Sam Worthington was on everybody's lips. They thought that he was going to become this huge megastar, forgetting that in Avatar he was very much well protected by the great direction of James Cameron, the fantastic visual and the fantastic, experience that was Avatar. Here he wasn't so lucky. And the fact is that he's a moderately good actor, but he has no personality and he has no charisma. And it was increasingly difficult to really care what was going to happen to him by the end of the movie. You didn't care whether or not he, would burst into flame, turn green, or be pregnant, or anything that would happen to him. He would have been like, yeah, whatever, because he was very boring. And his character was also extremely annoying. And he was just complaining, and he just felt like holier than thou entitled idiot who just was this bitter and uninteresting and ungrateful asshole. And it was difficult to look beyond that. If you could have had somebody else in the role, maybe it would have worked better. I don't know, but I think that the character needed to be rewritten in a much more interesting way so that we would have cared about him, but maybe I'm complaining too much about it. Because when you get down to it, this is a relatively fun, entertaining, spectacular, epic fantasy movie with lots of fun stuff to have, and I really like the third act and the final confrontation, even though it also had a very abrupt ending that also contained a fair amount of cop-out, which I absolutely hate, but hey-ho, what you gonna do? So, should you see this movie? I will say that if you like, big budget blockbusters of, fantasy and adventure movies, this movie should probably be a movie that you would think are pretty damn good. It's, leaps and bounds above such movies as, Gods of Egypt or stuff like that. It's not quite as good as, fun movies such as Van Helsing or The Mummy or something like that, but it is a relatively inoffensive and relatively entertaining movie. By the way, fun fact, this is actually a remake of Clash of the Titans from 1981, which is a weird movie considering that this was a, Harryhausen style fantasy movie, and being released in 1981, it felt a little bit, It's a bit like if they were, releasing a classic fantasy movie with Jason Momoa in 2011. Well, unless it actually, did that. More on that some other time. Clash of the Titans is a completely okay movie, which is elevated by the star power of Liam Neeson, Ray Fiennes, and is a bit held back by the lackluster personality of Sam Worthington. But should you see it or not? I think you should see it, because at least it is entertaining and it never overstays its welcome, and it's relatively fine, especially seeing it in 2D without, the added on 3D effects, because they were quite hideous. Clash of the Titans might be a slight bit mediocre, but at least it has a uncomplicated story, an uncomplicated end, and they don't try to, tamper too much with the original source material, even though I'm not an expert in Greek mythology. I give Clash of the Titans 57 points. It's a relatively good fantasy movie that does not deserve all the flack it has gotten over the years. That is mostly to the fact that it was released, with this slapdash 3D effects on that, muddled the water from what it actually was. A relatively uncomplicated, fun adventure movie. And if that is something that you think you will like, I think you will like this movie quite well. By the way, I think that the sequel is an inferior movie, and I actually like the original better than this one. But which one is your favorite? Comment below, and I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.